If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews.
In this reminiscent episode of Mind Pump, we went down a little memory lane.
Yeah.
We started out by talking about how caffeine affects sex drive, manipulating salt to change how you look, carb loading, preferred sources of carbohydrates. And then we went into the origin of when we created the MAPS Performance Program. Now, a lot of the OGs who've been with us for a long time know this, but for those of you who are newer, MAPS Performance is the first program that, Adam, Justin, and myself wrote together. And it's really what set the stage for how we create these programs that many of you now enjoy. And it was a great episode. A lot of memories on how the things went together, why we created MAPS Performance the way we did. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun episode. Now, MAPS Performance is 50% off this month, so it's half off, but you do have to use the code GREEN50. That's GREN50, so there's no space. You get that at mindpumpmedia.com, so make sure you go check that out. But, one last word about MAPS Performance. It's very different. It's a different kind of program. If you're bored with your traditional muscle building stuff, your bench presses and your overhead presses and your rows and whatever, MAPS Performance is a totally different program. It'll give your body a completely different stimulus. And you know how the body responds when it gets something new. It changes, it builds muscle, it burns body fat. And of course, the program is designed to get you to move better, functional strength, functional speed, agility, all those types of things. Again, 50% off. Use the code GREEN50. That's the number 50. Mindpumpmedia.com, and here we go.
I feel sorry for you guys.
Huh?
I'm starting to feel good.
Do you feel like
not quite
220 testosterone good?
No, I don't. It's crazy. My libido's weird right now, dude. Maybe. My sleep is a little bit tiny off, though, so I haven't been having the best night's sleep right now.
Well, here, you know what? It could be the diet because the calories are low.
This is what I think. That's what I think.
Because low calories will kill the libido.
That's exactly what I think it is, because this week is the first week where I'm staying at 2,500 calories. And I haven't been consistently staying at 25.
That might be it.
I've been at 3,400 calories. Yeah. And I've been like, okay, this is my week of dropping.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been down. And and you know what I've also been doing too, which probably isn't helping the cause, is I'm way overstimulated on caffeine because I'm needing it to fucking...
Oh, that'll destroy your libido.
Yeah.
Stimulants will do that all the time. I remember when I started taking ephedra back in the day. I remember that. I remember I was I had this girlfriend for a short period of time, and I took a bunch of Rip Fuel, and then,
You let that stop you, bro?
Let me finish the story. And I remember. Now, remember, I'm 18 years old at the time, so you could have stabbed me in the penis and it wouldn't have stopped me. But I remember I was on hella Rip Fuel, and it just wasn't the same. It was all good. We still did it, but I remember afterwards I was like, what?
It's crazy that you would even
into it.
You would put that together back then. I had no clue of any of that back then. It was too, like you said, at that age you could stab me there and I'd be still fine. Where now I'm so sensitive to things that I can pick up on that. Like I know.
You're just more aware of your body.
Yeah, right. I'm so super aware of them. And especially when everything else, like I'm eating clean, I'm training good, but I'm like, what is it right now? Where my libido was, because my libido was just rocking like a week or two ago, and it's like the two major differences that I notice right now is I'm in a caloric deficit, and for me it's significantly low. I don't run 2,500 calories normally, and I've been running it multiple days in a row, and then on top of that, I just haven't had the oomph to go lift, and so I've been like slamming the caffeine down
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be. So here's what I've done with.
So I know I got to back off.
Yes, this is my expertise when it comes to managing supplements like that, because I've just played with it for so long. So what I do is I go higher caffeine every other day, and then on the days in between I go low caffeine. Now, what does this mean? This means that my workouts on the lower caffeine days aren't as hard. So I do it. I make sure to take the higher doses on the days I'm doing my heavy, hard workouts.
Yeah, you need it.
And then on the lighter, easier days, then I just put my headphones on or we'll listen to music, and I'm definitely not as aggressive. So I'm focusing on squeezing and focusing on the form. And it helps because on the days I do take the higher caffeine, I feel it. I feel great. Right. If I go every day Takes me a week before I start to feel like shit. 1 week, within a week, I start to get no effects from it. And then I start to get shitty workouts, actually. What starts happening is I start to get a little shaky. I'll get edgy. Do you get in a bad mood when the caffeine wears off?
Oh, totally. I've noticed I'm a little irritable, just a tiny bit, So, and I mean, you guys probably felt that just the other day, and so I caught that. Like I was like, oh, that was weird. We had a meeting, and I was kind of irritable. I snapped at Katrina a little bit.
There's I have to say this because it may actually work. There's one of the supplements that Mike Matthews has on his company, what's called Legion, the sleep one. I can't remember the name of it. But in there is a compound that accelerates your liver's ability to remove caffeine. And I can't remember the name. Maybe Doug can look up the sleep formula and I'll remember it. But I was reading his ingredients.
Interesting.
And one of the ingredients I didn't recognize, so I did my research, and that's what it does. Mm-hmm. And so I've tried it a couple times, and it might actually work. So I don't know, because he gave us a bunch of stuff that one time.
We have a ton of his stuff over there.
We might have some in the back.
Well, what I noticed that was this has been, I want to say like 4 or 5 days in a row of.
And you're drinking coffee on top of it.
Yeah, no, that's staple, right? Like for a normal morning, is I have my cup of coffee on the way over here.
So let's add it up. You have would you say 8 ounces of coffee?
No, that's a big cup.
12 ounces?
Yeah.
So 12 ounces of coffee is
that's a mini jug.
Yeah, it's the 12 ounces of coffee is around 300 milligrams of caffeine. Then you have what later?
Is it 300? I don't think it's that much.
12 ounces?
Yeah, no, it's not that much. It's more like 100.
Like
bro.
it's just like a black cup of coffee?
Yeah, 8 ounces is like 50 milligrams.
No.
Just a regular cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so here, I'll look it up for you right here. So, maybe you are right.
I am right.
Yeah, look at that, 136.
Thank you.
This is weird now. Hold on a second.
You get more.
I know it's hard for you to do that.
300 is that Rockstar we found.
Yeah,
versus
so the Rockstar I drink after this is 240.
Yeah.
So that's
pushing it.
And you do that?
Yeah, that's what I have been just those last 4 days.
I know this. What's Nitro's up there too, though?
Nitro's really high.
I looked up at it was the Starbucks one. They actually they don't allow them to put it in the venti size.
No.
I kept trying to get them to do it for me.
No, I'm right. Hold on a second. How would you say that's the same size as a grande drip coffee from Starbucks?
No, we just did the ounces. You committed me to 12 ounces and then telling you what I thought the milligrams were.
So no, I'm trying to figure this out here because I looked on another site, but there's a site called, this is a good little plug for them.
Well, give or take, it's not 150 milligrams is, even if it was, it's not. It's
probably closer to 200 something. But anyway, Caffeine Informer, great website. You can find caffeine content for pretty much anything. I always go there. So you have that
caffeine addicts
plus the Rockstar, and then on top of that, you do 1 or 2 scoops of the pre-workout.
No. I'm not doing all those in the same day.
Oh, okay.
A day. So, but what I'll do, because I've only had the Rockstar twice. I've had that twice in this last week, and that was just simply because it was accessible to me. I didn't have anything. I just pulled over to a gas station. I grabbed it real quick, and then I had it before I trained because I just needed something to get me up. And so I've done that twice. And then the other days I've actually went and done our Nitro. So I'm probably pushing 400 or 500 milligrams of caffeine a day, which is a lot for me. That's just I don't normally do that. And so I can
that's
get
not too bad, but
no. It's
but
not,
for you, you're saying it's high.
Yeah, and consistently, like for a whole week now, I've done that to and I'm also low calorie. And so I can feel a little bit of irritability.
Yeah,
I can tell my sleep is messed up a little bit.
I always tend to do that on the low calorie, like ramp up the stimulants. Like that was something that I was guilty of and started to feel so. But now,
it's tough, right? You have to ask yourself, and I play this game all the time with myself. Like, okay, is it worth it for me to do it? Because what it will do is what's great, especially if you haven't had caffeine, like you're saying, which I'm good about. I'm really good about resetting myself.
Then you have a great workout.
Oh yeah, you take 240 milligrams and you're not used to taking more than 100. You're fucking flying, and like you could be dead asleep, and then all of a sudden that wakes me right up for a lift.
Yeah.
Like, so that I like to be able to have that and to make sure I don't allow myself to get adapted to it.
The ingredient's called rutacarpine. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Rutacarpine. It actually it reduces the levels of caffeine in the body at a faster.
Oh, interesting.
At a faster rate. That's what it's supposed to do. Now, I did read some studies on it, and apparently it does work. It's funny the individual variance with how quickly your body metabolizes caffeine, and some of us just like you're saying 400, 500 for you is high, and you would probably want to be around 300 a day, right? Something like that?
Yeah, well, that's
300 for me is really high a day.
Right. So me, it's a cup to 2 cups of coffee is a nice like.
Yeah. Justin probably has the most on a regular basis.
Probably.
Yeah, you do like what 3-4 cups a day?
Yeah.
Because I watch you.
And
no, I'm just kidding.
I know you do like a hawk.
But are you doing any pre-workouts? I don't ever see.
No, I don't do and to be honest, through this whole like competition, it's just been nitro or like cold brew, and so I've been really trying to stick with that, so I don't get any additional stuff. But occasionally, like I'll do like you've done with like a Rockstar or something if I'm like in a pinch, but I try really hard to just stick with like, so I don't have any like added. Like I used to do milk with it, and I used to do like some kind of a sweetener or something like, and I just cut all that out. So
yeah, yesterday I was.
Are you drinking just straight black coffee in the morning?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yesterday I was starting to get hungry because my calories are starting to drop too.
Yeah.
And so last night we go grocery shopping, which is terrible.
Oh, that's the worst to do when you're hungry.
Oh my God, dude. So I'm like, fuck, I want to eat everything. But luckily I did, what I bought? I ended up buying pickles, which by the way, pickles made right, they're fermented, so you get some of the probiotics, and one pickle's like, so was it 1 gram of carb? It's like nothing. It's a cucumber, basically. Yeah. Great food to eat when you're trying to eat something and you don't want calories.
That's a staple in prep life for me.
Is it really?
Oh, absolutely. Because I'm sodium loading before I head into.
Oh, and the salt helps a lot.
Yeah, no. So I also when I coach people, I put it in their diet. It's like I want you to have a pickle. It's a great natural way to increase sodium in someone's diet. It gives you a snack that's somewhat.
So you're raising sodium leading up until what, like the last 2 weeks or something?
Yeah. So and that's
so then when you cut it back down to normal, your body gets rid of water.
Right, and that's just it. Is I think where a lot of guys in girls in the competing world make a mistake is they kind of eat their diet. Their prep diet the same the whole time or whatever, and then when they get to the last week,
you do the same with water too, right?
Exactly, yeah. and exactly, and I think that's both sodium.
By the way, those don't work unless you're shredded. Let's be clear here. I think people try to do that shit, and they're just not lean.
Yeah,
it's like manipulate your water all you want. You got too much fat.
You're not going to see shit.
Yeah, but if you have somebody who's they're just eating like their normal meal prep. Which, by the way, okay, so if you take somebody, and this is what I think a lot of prep people. So this is for all my prep people that are listening. If you go from you eat out, you do whatever you want to do, and then you decide, okay, 16 weeks I'm going to go do my bikini show or whatever, and you get into the meal prep life. Well, right away, you just cut your sodium like in half because one eating out meal is like equivalent to like the most amount of salt you could pour on your fucking food in 5 meals. So a lot of people don't realize that they are already high sodium consumers, and then they go into a prep and then they do all these prepped meals that are actually pretty low sodium meals, maybe some seasoning and stuff like that, but pretty low. They're eating whole natural foods for the most part if you have a solid diet. And so you automatically reduce your sodium. And then they get close to peak week, and then they start playing with sodium levels, and they reduce it even lower.
They end up losing their pump. They can't work out well.
You don't feel good. That's not healthy. And, and Lane, I remember reading a lot of the stuff that Lane would put out way back when, and I thought it was really good because he doesn't sodium pull or doesn't mess with water at all, which I disagree with that. I think there's some validity to manipulating sodium in water. I just think that it's not worth the risk of doing it in an unhealthy way. So my theory and what I teach Melissa and every other client that I've ever coached for like a show is, the leading weeks up to peak week, we're flooding the system with water and sodium. So I'm pushing water levels up high to where, it's double what you would ever normally drink of water. It's like, this is not my normal amount of water. So I want your body and your system to get used to taking in that much water, doubling up your sodium. And then when we get into peak week, we pull it down to a very healthy, normal place where it's not abnormally low.
You get like a rebound effect where then your body loses more water as a result?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It starts to pull it out, and you're still hydrated and healthy. You're still getting adequate water to help fill the muscle bellies up.
Interesting.
And then the day before, we do like a little sodium load right before the show, and it's just muscles fill out really good, vascularity comes out, and it's worked very well for me. I feel good about it because the knock that a lot of health nuts talk shit about competitors that do that is obviously because not having sodium is not a good thing. I've seen coaches tell clients
that's an essential thing.
Yeah,
you die with that. And then on top of it, you're sweating doing cardio and working out.
Yeah,
not a good idea.
That's a really bad combo.
So what's an average meal right now? Because the contest is almost over. What do you guys like? For example, what did you guys eat yesterday?
So I'm at 2,500 calories, but I'll I'll fill back in right before we go and we weigh and measure.
So what's an example of like your meals yesterday?
So it's staple meals that I'm having right now,
or maybe like a week and a half out or whatever.
Yeah. I'll give you the types of foods that I eat right now. So I definitely rotate my meats a lot. So I'm eating things. I get steak in pretty regularly, although I've reduced my steak intake in comparison to what it was before we were competing. I was eating a lot of red meat. And I was curious if that was doing anything with me hormonally, so I kind of peeled back on the red meat. So I'm having like a serving or so of red meat a day, chicken thighs, fish. I get a lot of sushi in the diet. As far as carbohydrates right now, my only sources of carbs other than vegetables and greens, right, is I'm getting white rice and sweet potato. So those are and then fruit. I get occasionally I'll have fruit. Post-workout, I tend to have I have it in my smoothie that I've told you guys with Organifi, where I'm adding the blueberries and a banana. I get a cup of blueberries and a full banana. So that's kind of my fruit in my diet. And then the carbs are always rice and sweet potato, and then chicken thighs, steak. I had ground turkey. I had the lean ground turkey, not extra lean, but lean ground turkey. One of my favorite go-to dishes. I think people. I showed the tacos the other day in my Insta story. And so I'll make like that night I had tacos, and then the next couple days I use the ground turkey because I cook it in bulk, or Katrina cooks it in bulk. And then I make like a taco salad. Mm-hmm. So I shred lettuce. I have the ground turkey with just the taco seasoning on it. And then I take like 2 taco shells, which is 120 calories, and it's corn. And I crumple it up, and I
crumple it up,
crush it up.
I knew exactly what you were saying.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
So I crush it up into like a taco salad, and that's fucking phenomenal, man.
That sounds good.
It's amazing, and it's super low cal.
Salsa on it.
Yeah, you just sprinkle a little salsa over the top of it, and you've got this taco seasoning in the meat, so you get the good flavor from that.
That sounds amazing.
You got lettuce and tacos. It's a low calorie.
I like it.
Great treat.
Yeah, I like the white rice and the sweet potato because it's easy to digest. I think that's why competitors use them so often, is because they digest so easily. They're typically low in intolerances for people. Buckwheat is another one. I've talked about this before. I don't know why.
I need to try.
I don't know why more people don't eat.
Now, when you say it digest, so here's why I like white rice. White rice is so easy to digest, and it gets into your system quick. Mm-hmm. And it's weird. Like I can totally tell the difference. Like, so I can take, and I would do this when I was competing and training and my diet when I was super lean, right? And all this stuff that we're talking about, I think, you touched on it with the sodium and water. Like, it's so hard for the average person to see it unless you're really, really lean to feel this difference and see it. But it's very, very. Me taking in 100 grams of carbs from sweet potato versus white rice, like I can feel the difference in the glycemic index. It's crazy. Like you can tell. If I go and have a cup or 2 of white rice, 30 minutes to an hour before a workout, I'm filled out.
This is the first time I can.
Oh, it's
totally,
right. Yeah, explain that.
So I went through like a process, and now I'm back to just eating meat, but where I was like experimenting with that and like adding a cup and then kind of ramping up a little bit more of like white rice, and then I got a little bit of like potato as well, and so I've been experimenting with those too. But like it was insane, like what I could feel as far as like you said, it's almost like an immediate kind of response, like this energy that I could pull from that, being so restricted leading into that. Like, I had never been that depleted, so my body was so responsive.
And you notice a huge performance increase.
Yeah. So that was shocking, and it was kind of fun to kind of experiment with that, and then obviously getting back to more restrictive with it here towards the end. But yeah,
buckwheat is a very popular food that's consumed in Eastern Europe. They eat it quite a bit.
I wanted to ask you. So my point of sharing the rice thing is, and then why I said that was because I was leading to ask you was, is it fast like rice, or is it more like sweet potato where it's just
no, it's more like rice.
Oh, okay.
So, and what I'll buy is this hot buckwheat cereal, so it's slightly processed. And what I mean by that is, because if you buy buckwheat in bulk, you'll see the little buckwheat balls and everything. This one, they remove the, I don't know what it's called, the husk or whatever. And so it's kind of like cream of wheat. And so you pour this, you boil the water, you pour it in there, you mix it, and you cook it slowly. It's like grits. You ever cook grits?
Yes.
Okay, so it's just like cooking grits, except you're using buckwheat. And it's I could eat 50, 60 grams of carbs from it, and I felt like I ate nothing, which I love with well-digested carbs. Like I'll eat it, and I won't feel like, oh, I ate a bunch of, starches or whatever. Very easy digestion, and it's one of my favorite sources of.
Now, when you're comparing it heads up to because in the competitive world, that staple meal is oatmeal. Like that was like a staple thing.
Sure.
Was oatmeal in the morning. I'd scoop my protein inside of it.
Oatmeal's great, but oatmeal if I push too much oatmeal, I'll notice a little bit of issue, minor, a little bit of gas, maybe a little bit of bloating. I don't get that with buckwheat or rice. Like rice and buckwheat, I can eat a lot of, and not have those issues. And it's just one of my, and people don't eat it that much here in the States. But like I said, I know in Eastern Europe they eat it quite a bit, and they'll make dishes. Well, they'll make it with You can make it very hearty. You can make it savory. So I know people who will put bacon in there and stuff like that, or you can make it sweeter if you want. I eat it plain, just plain buckwheat, super easy to digest. Sometimes I'll put a little butter, and that's it.
So I used to do that. Oatmeal was my staple, and what I've also found out.
Now, did you do the slow oatmeal or instant?
No, not instant oatmeal.
Oh, when you cook.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're still cut oats, right?
Yeah.
So I would do my oatmeal, whey protein, a little bit of blueberries or something. That would be my first meal, and then I'd get another meal with a cup of rice or a cup and a half, depending on where I'm at, body weight wise and stuff. Before, and then I get a lift in, and that amount of carbohydrates in me, especially when I'm lean and I've been depleted, and then I refeed like that. Man, you go into a workout, and I haven't been able to do that in a while. Like, so I've been trying to lean out, and I've been eating more like eggs. So my breakfast looks more ketogenic. Like it's because I can't get enough protein in. I'm not eating enough meals to have a meal that's a high carb and low protein meal, and that's the problem for me with having oatmeal or something like that. That's a high carb is I'm not getting enough protein, and so I have to have like a really high protein meal to start my day. So it puts me on pace to make sure I hit. Otherwise, I'm playing catch up all day, and I'm going, oh shit, it's 1:00 and I've had 30 or 40 grams of protein. Like I'm gonna have a hard time getting there. And,
it's you talk about eating breakfast. I heard Jordan Peterson talk about. Actually, he wrote about this in his book on how when he works with people with a lot of anxiety, one of the things he recommends that they do is first thing in the morning when they wake up, like as soon as they wake up, eat a high protein, high fat breakfast because it regulates their hormones, their cortisol, their insulin, and it lowers their rates of anxiety. And he says it's a very effective strategy. Well, since then, Jessica, she does a lot of online coaching, and she has a lot of the type of people that tend to seek her out are people who want to speed up their metabolism, or people who have food intolerance issues, or people with issues like I talked about where they feel anxious or whatever. So she started recommending people do this, like first thing in the morning, wake up and don't have caffeine, don't have anything, have a fat protein breakfast, and she's saying the results are phenomenal. Like these women are saying that their anxiety is lower, they feel much better because. When you wake up first thing in the morning, cortisol's high. That's supposed to happen because cortisol is that energy-producing hormone. But for people with anxiety, it can get a little too high or stay up too high. And so having that high-fat, high-protein breakfast first thing in the morning seems to help a lot of people, and it's backed up by, of course, clinical psychologist.
It's funny because there's things like this that I find myself that I go in and out of because I recognize the health side of it, right? I recognize how clear I am. I'm more balanced. It satiates me, but then I also see the lack of performance. Mm-hmm. So I notice the difference when I'm the oatmeal or high carb type of breakfast followed by another carb and balanced meal. It really, really suits me well for performing well in my workouts. And so I kind of go in this back and forth of like what suits me. And so I try and like predict like, okay, this is going to be a big lift day today. So this is the day that I'll allow carbohydrates in for the first meal, or if it's just a normal day for me where it's just I'm not sure what time I'm going to lift, if I'm going to lift at all, and it's like I got a long work day. It's like now I care more about being clear.
It's interesting, man. Like if I were to go back and play a sport again and go through that whole process of training and going through camp, and then like my nutrition would have been so different.
Oh yeah,
and especially leading up into like a big game and being more depleted, leading in, before the game, and then like carb loading like properly would have made an insane difference. I just never really like scheduled it out and like was disciplined with it like that.
I remember the first time I tried to do it and I did it the wrong way. I had a it was a judo tournament, and I ate a bunch of pancakes and syrup and shit. I'm like,
you
it's
think
carbs.
more carbs, right?
And I was fucking dragging ass.
That's exactly what I used to do.
Yeah,
like waffles.
Yeah, it felt like shit. And I was like, but you don't know that when you're young. You don't know that kind of stuff. It's the information you could use when you're young.
Yeah, carb loading means more spaghetti, right? I think that's what they think.
Yeah, dude. So we only have like a few days. How many days do we have left? Like 5 days before this 50% off MAPS. This MAPS performance of all the programs that we have. All the MAPS programs that we have, all the guides, everything that we've created, the one that is most special to me is MAPS Performance because it's
our first baby.
It's the first program we all created together. It's the first one where we all.
What house was that? Was that the koi fish?
No, that was
in
up
Reno.
That was up in Reno.
Oh, Reno was.
This is our first time at the Atlantis.
At the suite?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember it vividly.
That's so crazy to me. I don't know why I keep thinking it was the house with the koi in it. So it was the
koi was aesthetic.
That was aesthetic.
That's when we created aesthetic, I think.
Yeah.
And then we did Prime in Reno also.
We did Prime in Reno also. Yeah.
So that first, I'm trying to recall that first trip right now, and it's blurry for me. Prime, I remember really well. Green, when we were in there, was this one of those ones where we just never left the room and we were?
Nope.
Yeah, we never left the room, and we had some idea going into it as far as like what we're trying to accomplish. I think.
Do we have in mind what program we were running?
Yeah, but just because as a follow up to anabolic, I was like, it'd be great if we could do a little more functional style training and something that addresses like athletic performance. And so I thought it was just going to be pure athletic performance. Like that was going to be the goal. Like we're going to make like a sports program, and we really stretched it even further to make it more accessible and have more broad appeal. And so, that's where you guys really kind of like helped it evolve even further.
Well, one of my favorite things about when we go off to create programs, because this is it's special to me because it was the first program we all created together. But it's also special to me because it set the formula and the precedent for how we create programs, which now has become our ritual. It's something that we now do, and it puts us right in that space because this is the first time we ever experienced that space. What we did was remember, this is back in the early days of Mind Pump, so all we had was MAPS Anabolic at the time, and that was a program that Doug and I had put together, and we all liked it and this and that. And then we said, okay, we want to create another program. And at that time, we had some debate and discussion in terms of what direction we should go. One of our biggest criticisms at the time was the type of workouts that CrossFit was promoting.
Yeah.
Where,
That's right.
Yeah, people were just beating themselves up. You had a lot of boxes that were training people improperly.
That's what really sparked it, I feel like, because we came out with the episode that says why Mind Pump doesn't CrossFit. We ruffled a bunch of feathers, and then
people are like, "Well, give
what's
us
your
an
answer? Yeah, how would you do it?
How would you train for this kind of performance?" And so on the way, and it created this ritual. But this is our first time ever experiencing it. That's why it was so beautiful. Is on the way up there, and this is what we do every time we create a program. As we're driving to the destination, because we always drive to our destination. We never fly anywhere. It's always somewhere we could drive. That 1 to 4 hour drive, because that's typically how long it takes. That's when we start to figure out the direction where we're going to go.
It's like the mind mapping of everything.
Yeah, and so we're in the car, and Justin had an idea of doing a purely athletic program. I'm thinking like, how can we create something that would get someone fit, like overall functional, that kind of stuff. Adam and I were going back and forth. We're talking, with Justin, and something came to us in the car, and that was like, okay, because here's the thing with athletic training. Athletic training is extremely specific. This was the problem.
It's very specialized.
Yeah, how are we going to train? How are we going to create a program that's going to work for a football player, that's going to work for a tennis player, that's going to work for a CrossFit athlete, that's going to work for the average person who just wants to get shredded and muscular but also wants to be able to move?
Yeah, what does that baseline look like? What's all those attributes that we need to extract and kind of put together?
Do you guys remember this? We were in the car, we were driving, and we're all going back and forth, and this was the first time I had all of us, I think, had experienced that spark of imagination and creativity that we now know how to tap into whenever we want. This was the first time we really felt it. And we're driving, and I think I said something like, the original Olympic athletes of ancient Greece, and for a long time after, the ideal athlete was someone that could do everything. it wasn't as democratized as it is now. Like today, if you look at a shot put athlete and you look at a javelin thrower
and then a sprinter,
they look so different, right? Because you have tons of genetics that play a role. Like a shot putter was born to be a shot putter, and then there's lots of training that goes into it. But I was thinking, when you look at the ancient sculptures of athletes of Greece that they were trying to model after these athletes that did very well in all these events, like what did they look like? They looked balanced. They were muscular. They were lean. They had the muscles that were functional were the ones that were developed. So they had amazing looking cores and upper backs and shoulders and great looking arms that looked like they could function really well. And then we came up with the idea of this broad spectrum athletic performance of an ancient athlete. And that's what directed us to creating Mass Performance was, what is an ancient athlete? What was the ideal of those times? Which in those times, it wasn't the best guy that could run and then the best guy that could throw a discus and the best guy that could wrestle. It was the best guy that could do all that.
Right.
And so it was this ideal that, and then what we did is we deconstructed that. Like, what are the attributes that make someone a badass at everything? Then we were able to start putting the program together, because before we designed the program, we had to understand the direction.
Which a lot of I think were the intentions of probably Glassman when he thought of CrossFit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that was the intentions when they created the programming behind that, and this adding gymnast type of moves and strongman type of lifts and athletic type of throws and all these things combined. I just think that they didn't do a great job of programming. I think we all agree that it was just like, the idea, because they made all of it competitive for time, you took lifts, that just have no business being done in this, low, and no business for the average person. Does that mean like the supreme athlete? There is definitely a 1% of the population that CrossFit is beautiful for. Like they're mechanically sound, they're super balanced. They can push those limits of doing super high risky movements at high intensity with no rest and going to fatigue. As dangerous as it is, they still can perform it and do it.
And what you're saying, Adam, is for a very small percentage of people, when they get super exhausted, their form doesn't really break down.
Right. That's what I mean.
That's the biggest knock, and I think that their pairing of exercises, like that's where I saw the biggest discrepancy of exhausting the athletes and then having them do really high skilled lifts,
like Olympic lifts.
Yeah, Olympic lifts that were, sure, these are amazing exercises, but they need the amount of detail and the amount of what you need to incorporate to be able to pull this lift off needs so much attention on its own that let's program it in, sure, but let's give it its own focus.
Yeah, Olympic lifts are highly, you have to have a tremendous amount of skill to do them. And if your skill breaks down, the form becomes, or the exercise becomes dangerous. And so that was one of our critiques. So we had a bunch of these different types of critiques. But what we tried to do is create something that would work on all the most important foundational aspects and attributes of somebody who could perform at a high level in any sport or do well at anything. And what we did is we broke it down, because this is how you want to program. When you're writing a workout for someone, if you're a trainer, you have to break it down this way.
Well, remember too that we knew, and this is where the experience comes in, right? Like, and I think I see this in the fitness space a lot, is a lot of trainers, they write programs or they create things that they would do or they would like to do. And what we realize is just like dude, I've trained thousands of people, so have you guys. And, most people, they want to look like the CrossFit guy and girl. They want to look like them, maybe they think they want to train like them or get to that point, but the bottom line is they're years and years and years potentially away from ever moving like that, if they ever can. You get somebody who's 30-something years old that has all these imbalances, and then you throw them in a CrossFit class, like thinking that and then you're just going to teach them these movements.
And the irony is that the top athletes don't train that way. The top athletes,
that is the irony.
They train with their Olympic lifts, coach. They train with, that's the kind of, we knew that too, because we knew athletes that competed at very, very high levels, and we have friends that own boxes who are actually quite successful and do a good job.
Right.
But we broke down, what are these attributes? Like, what do you need to be this type of an athlete? And then how do you train those attributes? And then how do you order the way you train those attributes? And so we broke it down that way. And the first thing that we understood was, the one physical attribute that contributes to all of them, the base foundational physical attribute, the most important from a foundational level. Not that it's the most important, that's the only one you focus on, but in the sense that if you don't have this one, the other ones don't matter, is strength.
Strength. You always have to have that.
Yeah, strength is the ultimate cornerstone foundational physical pursuit, because without good strength, you don't have agility. Your endurance matters for shit. Mm-hmm. You don't have, decent mobility without strength. Actually, there is no mobility without strength.
Well, it's the one adaptation that carries over into all of them.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
I mean, you can be great at all these other adaptations, but a lot of those don't necessarily bleed into all of the other ones, where strength is the one that truly carries into all of them. If you get stronger, you'll be faster. If you get stronger, you'll have better mobility. If you
know what I'm saying? To express power and generate more force. As long as you got to get strong and you got to be able to generate, more force. And so this is something that, that is the start. That is the start. And now let's move into, okay, well, how are we going to express the strength? And so we express it by, moving in a lot of different directions. I mean, that's life. Mm-hmm. Life is, not straight ahead of us and behind us. That's not it. That's not the complexity of what we're dealing with. We're rotating constantly. We're going side to side. We're accounting for a lot of things that are unpredictable. So if I'm stepping somewhere that's uneven, like how do I respond to that? Mm-hmm. So all these types of things really matter, especially when we're trying to move better.
Right. So the idea is this: like, you want to start when you're trying to mold and shape someone to make them a badass, full spectrum like athlete that can move and do all these different things and look phenomenal too, because we know that the market likes that as well. Okay, let's build this really good, strong foundation of strength. Now that you've got it, so once you do that, now you're getting strong. Now, like what Justin's saying is, okay, can you use that strength in different directions? Because that's a big problem. As an athlete, you got to be able to move in different directions.
Well, not even just as an athlete. And again, this is how we designed something that was speaking to the general population that would want to pursue that, is most people lose that movement in that transverse plane. You know, we move forward and backwards, and unless you're playing a sport as an adult, you know, how often do you rotate? You know, you just don't. We stop these rotational movements that are so important to our overall joint health.
Yeah, it's like building a car with a shit ton of horsepower, but your handling is absolutely terrible. It's not really.
No, it's a great
it.
analogy. It's exactly what it's like.
It's like drag racing, you know, versus like being able to like have an Indy car that has like can just turn and do everything on a dime
and control that strength. Yes, because lots of strength. Remember, the way your body adapts is quite specific to how you train. And so if you don't train your body's ability to express strength in different directions, your rate of injury might even increase. You might increase your strength by 30% in one direction. You try to apply strength to laterally in a sport or just running or whatever, and you might actually increase your risk of injury because you're so much stronger, but you don't know how to express it. And so then we designed an entire phase around what we call, reactive strength, or the ability to move in different directions and express this type of strength. By the way, the other thing that we tried to do, I don't know if you guys remember this, is we looked at it and we said, okay, at the end of the program, this person should be able to have all these attributes. And so there's this order of operations. So at the end of it, hypothetically, if you are an athlete, you could train this system up to the day of your competition. And then for the average person.
I love that we figured that into the equation, because as an athlete, I wanted to have a program that I knew I could time out, right? I could time it out and lead it into the season. Yeah. Exactly. So that's sort of the next progression for that. So this is actually a program we did 4 phases.
Is it the only one that has 4? One. I think it is. I mean, MAPS Anabolic has pre-phase, but that really doesn't count unless you're just starting off. It's 4 phases long. It's a long program.
Right.
It's got a decent amount of time within the program.
So now after we sort of express our strength and we're moving in different directions and we're able to stabilize our joints properly and move more effectively, let's add a little more
explosiveness,
force and expressiveness, and let's get after it a little bit. And And this is one of those things, too, that I think is another misconception, that people think of power, they think of loading and jumping at the same time and loading weights with that. Whereas, what we're trying to do is to be able to generate this intrinsically and be able to explode on a dime we don't necessarily need a lot of weights in this phase.
No, explosive strength or explosivity is the ability to generate your max force in the shortest period of time. That's all it is. So you could have somebody who is able to generate, 300 pounds of force, but it takes them, 3 seconds to do it. And you could have someone else that can generate 250 pounds of force, but it takes them a half a second to do it. Who's going to be more explosive?
Yeah. Who's going to get there first?
The person who can express it fast. Now, what are the benefits of this for the average person? Well, besides the fact that training this ability actually encourages or allows your body to call upon more muscle fibers, which is a good thing aesthetically. If you can call more muscle fibers to turn on faster, then your regular workouts are going to produce better results. You're going to build more muscle. You're going to look better. But besides all that, well, why is that important? Well, life happens. Shit happens you're not expecting. Having this explosive ability reduces your risk of injury when something falls off the counter and you got to move real quick to grab it. Your kid's in the swing. They're going to fly out the swing or whatever.
What's the most likely scenario? Yeah, it's moving super fast, and it's outside of the norm for you, right?
And that's how people hurt themselves.
They hurt themselves. And that's a very common thing that happens.
And that benefits everybody because your ability to do that. Think about it this way. If you're 30 or older, you've probably lost a lot of that ability. Remember when you were 17 years old and you could just jump off the couch and jump on? You could retrain that. Part of the reason why you lost it, I mean, of course, as you get older, you'll naturally lose some of that. But the larger reason why you lost it is you stopped training it. You stopped doing that kind of stuff, and you can retrain your body to do that. Now, imagine how you felt when you were 17 years old and you had that ability. That's how you're going to feel once you train that as an adult, and that's what that whole phase is all about. So you go from the foundational grinding strength to the reactive strength, be able to express it in different directions, to the explosive strength, and then at the end, as we're sitting there, we're putting this program together. We're like, well, now we got to give people a bigger gas tank.
That's it.
Because it's great to have all these attributes, but it's not that great if it lasts 10 seconds.
If your competitor's still going and you're just dogging it.
Yeah.
Which is how you would lead up to a competition or lead into a season too. It's like, what do you do? What does every sport do? What does a coach do the first week you get to camp?
Just blasts you.
All you do is run.
Run.
Sprint. No skill training whatsoever. It's just endurance to build your gas tank up. And so it just made sense that would be the last phase that you would do. And now you've got all this strength, you have all this functionality, and now you've learned how to express it. Now let's see how long you can express all that.
That's it. So that last phase is the one that's where you're going to be sweating, you're tired, you're burning a lot of calories, you're building that strength endurance.
Yeah.
But the thing about MAPS performance, that's I believe to be incredibly underrated, but I also believe it to be the most important part and the most beautiful part of the program, and the part that I actually had the most fun doing with you guys, was coming up with the mobility sessions.
Yep.
The mobility sessions they're very different.
Well, this is what makes this program so sweet and unique and different than
completely.
Because I don't know anybody else that's incorporated that and built it within the program.
In the program,
right?
You have to go through these mobility days where, and two, like what's so great about it is like we obviously understood there's a formula to MAPS anabolic. We understood what worked really well with that and why, and like the recovery of trigger sessions, but also sending that signal and being very specific, to the muscle, building signal with that. And so like, how can we sort of duplicate that? The priority with this is movement, right? And it's better quality movement, and it's reinforcing the joints, and while we're expressing, ourselves in all these different directions. So let's really, hone that in on the recovery day and make it all about, the mobility.
Yes. And now my other favorite thing about this program is when we put it out, we knew it would be very different. Like if you enrolled in like MAPS Anabolic and you have some gym experience, you're going to know every exercise in there. You're going to recognize pretty much everything that's in there. There's nothing crazy or different or traditional exercise. It's programmed well and it gives people great results, but it's not going to be way outside of your comfort
Well,
zone.
no, it's what it is. It's all the staple movements that everybody should be doing that everyone's probably heard of at one point in their life. You know what I'm saying?
And even MAPS aesthetic, is bodybuilder focused, but it's also got a lot of movements you've seen. MAPS performance is very different, and so I loved it because we had people enroll in the program who've worked out traditionally in gyms for years, and then the messages I would get, back, I still get these, but especially back then when we first came out with it. I've never seen some of these movements. I've never seen these mobility moves. I've never done anything like this before. I just, want to build muscle and get fit. Is this going to give me what I want or whatever? And I'm like, try it.
Yeah.
Try it out and watch what happens. What do we know about the body? You do something very different. Of course, it has to be done right, but you do something very different. Nothing gets your body to change faster, ever, at all. And so the messages I was getting was like, holy shit, I'm 4 weeks into it. I'm building more muscle. Like I thought this was a, functional athletic program. I'm like, well, it's also very different from what you're doing.
Right.
So you're going to see what's happening. Oh my God, I'm getting leaner. Wow. And then at the end of the program, a lot of people would go back to a more traditional routine. And then the messages were my favorite. This was, because remember the program is 12 weeks long. So, 3, 4, 5 months later, after we launched it for the first time, then I started getting messages like, my squat went up 20 pounds and my hips don't hurt anymore. And I'm able to overhead press 15 more pounds. I was stuck at that PR for years, and now I'm able to lift more.
Well, what was interesting about it too, because you also got the other side of that coin where, it's acquiring new skills. So going into this program, there's a lot of movements and a lot of things that initially, people felt like, well, I'm not as good at this, right? And I'm not like, I can't lift as much weight doing it this way, because it's a little bit different. And so it's challenging. And, and that's frustrating sometimes for people to kind of go through that process.
Oh, it's a very humbling program.
Yeah. So, but like Sal said, when you get through it and you start to respond and you're like, oh, and your body starts to adapt in those directions, now go into those staple lifts that you've done and watch how fortified your joints are. Watch how stable everything. And we know that when your joints are stable, your body will just naturally allow you to have more force production, which in turn you'll feel stronger and more free to lift more weights, heavier weights.
I remember watching in particular. And one of the things I really respect the most about the team that we have is everybody's so open-minded and open and ready to try different things and experience different things. And I really appreciated watching Adam go through. This was the beginning. Yeah, this was the beginning of Adam's mobility journey. I'm gonna, and I want you to talk about this, Adam, because I think
I wish people could have like a video of like your squat a long time ago and then your squat now. It's drastic.
Squats were not something you did very well. They hurt your back. They hurt your knees. You weren't able to go down all the way. You had issues with other movements. You had been bodybuilding for a long time, so that was the focus. We come out with MAPS Performance. Adam's like, I'm going to do the program. I'm going to do only MAPS Performance. I'm going to do the mobility stuff. The difference in how he moved after MAPS Performance was like night and day.
Yeah.
It was incredible. What was that journey like going through? Because I remember you come to work and you'd be like, yeah, dude, I got humbled today after.
Well, I mean, it was, the joke used to be that I used to say this even to my staff because I've always been the guy who was driven aesthetically. I openly would admit that, hey, listen, I'm all show, no go. I don't care about my performance. I want to look good. I want to take my shirt off. And a lot of people might have razzed me for that, but then a lot of people respected me for that, to be straight up and be like, that's what I care about, bottom line. Like I was an athlete as a kid. I cared about that when I was younger, but nowadays I just care to look good, and that the most exaggerated version of that would be bodybuilding. It's like, now I was already that kid who liked just to wanted to sculpt his body. Then I get into the sport of bodybuilding. Then all of the performance stuff goes out the window. It's 100% how I look. I don't give a shit what I can do. Like, I'm not tracking weights and PRs. I'm sculpting and looking at my body. And with that came the most aesthetic physique I've ever built in my life. And I was extremely happy with that. Now, the drawback of that is, my joint health, my ability to rotate, my ability to squat really, really well and deep with good form I had a lot of issues that I didn't really realize until I started to look into green and start following that. And I was like, wow, man, I'm really fucked up. Like I can't get all the way down in a squat. Like I felt it in my knees, like you're saying, I felt it in my low back. And then I was just on this mission to fix that. And I really, truly, not only did I follow the program to a T, but I probably went an extra mile of like, I started to do mobility stuff throughout the day because I started to see that, oh, wow, when I started doing these things consistently, I was seeing the way someone sees gains, like muscle gains, like when you start being really consistent with lifting and you start seeing the muscle go on, like the same thing I started seeing with the mobility. Like the more consistent I was with it, the better I felt. Like the more relief that I had, the better I felt in my squats. And I was like, okay. And with that, it is such a frequency thing, and it's really hard with mobility work to overtrain or overstimulate the CNS. You're not hammering weights really heavy. It's pretty easy. You're on the ground. You're doing 90-90s. You're working on combat stretches. You're doing these movements that aren't going to tax you, so I could increase the frequency. And so I would start doing our mobility stuff from MAPS Performance, and then I was like, I would pick one or two movements that were I was noticing the most change. And for me, I picked like squatting first. Like I was like, I got to be able to squat better. Like that's the most functional move that we could possibly do. And I wanted to address that. And the first place that I went, and that was when we got into the 90-90, which that was such a game changer for me, was to start doing that. And we have Froggers in there. That was a big game. I mean, I started doing these little mobility moves, and I was just like, holy shit, I have no connection here. Like I can't do some of this stuff. I remember the first time Brink put me in the 90-90 and he asked me to lift my back leg up, and I just looked at him like, it don't move, bro. Like I can't internally rotate my hip like that. And then he grabs my foot and he moves it, and I'm like, oh shit, I should be able to do that? Like that's fucking crazy to me. And so then I shifted my focus and drive towards sculpting my body to, I'm going to become like super mobile. Like I'm going to go from being, and I love that. I love being an underdog. I love a challenge. If it's easy, it's no fun for me. And so I knew this was going to be hard, and it took a long time, man. It's been a long journey, and I'll look, I probably have some old videos of me. I know I've got some, I know I don't have any from probably the very beginning because I know how shitty my squat was. But I definitely have some videos where I thought I was getting better at squatting, that aren't good, nowhere near what I can squat. I mean, I could sit now in a very, very deep, comfortable squat with 300 pounds on my back and come out of
with
it
no
with,
butt wink.
Yeah, no wink, complete control. But it's been constant progress for me, and it's something that it's come to this too. Like, and this was a hard transition for me. So,
I mean, think about it this way too. How much easier is it now for you to build aesthetic muscular legs now that you have that mobility?
Yeah, of course.
And that's the irony, because I think a lot of people think that's a trade-off. Like, oh, well, you're either this or you're that.
Yeah.
No. They contribute to each other, which is why, like a program like this, you do something like this, go back and then go through another routine. Watch how your body builds muscle and how your body moves. The results you get are just superior because you can move and perform better, and it
takes a mind shift though. Like if you're somebody who's like me and you can relate to like caring about how you look and driven that way, to ask yourself to like completely let that go and become this performance or mobility person. That's I felt like I was the right person to do that, especially out of all of us, and because I think that everybody tends to get in a box, whether you say you are or you're not, and you don't want to be, it's really easy to gravitate towards the things that you perform well at or that you like to train and you like to do. And it's rare that I meet somebody who weaves in and out of all different modalities. And I really pride myself on being able to be that guy. Like, even though I openly admit that I was always aesthetically driven, I also pride myself on being someone who puts himself through challenges like this, and it was the best thing I ever did. And now it's to a point where, and this was I was never like this. I was the guy who trained 7 days a week lifting weights because I love lifting weights, and all I would do was modify my intensity based off of my soreness and what I could hit. But I was always lifting to lift. Like, where now, I'm always watching my mobility more than I even watch what I look like in the mirror. So if I notice that I just got up from a chair and I'm like, ugh, or I go to sit down and I feel really tight and stiff, that to me, like the next day, it might be shoulder and chest day and I'm going in to go lift, But I go, you know what? Like today, I'm gonna throw some easy listening music on, and for an hour, I'm gonna go to work on mobility stuff, and I'll spend that time in that world that I would have never done that in the past. And I see now how much it served me. Like I don't have low back pain anymore. I had chronic low back pain.
You lived with it.
Yeah, I lived with it forever. And I know why, and I know the issues. I just wasn't addressing them. You know, I was able to get by and be fine. And when I was training and my core was strong, it alleviated that enough to where I didn't really need to address the dysfunction that I had going on. But I've always had this, you know, excessive arch in my low back, and it runs in my family. You see it in my uncle. I saw it in my grandmother. I see it in my sister. Like we all kind of have this.
The Instagram post.
Yeah. It's like I got it naturally, and I've always had that. And you know, it's caused low back pain. And if I don't, especially if I'm overweight at all, especially if I'm not training and my core is not tight. And so for the first time ever, I really started to address it and try and counter it. And it's, man, I couldn't be happier for what it's done for me. I'm older now. I'm 37 years old, and my body feels better from like as far as my joints, my knees, my low back, things like that, than it ever has in my entire life. And that feels really good. I might not be the strongest person I've ever been or the fastest person I've ever been, but I definitely feel the best I've ever felt as far as my mobility and my range of motion. And then a big one for me was, and this is too why I stress this to a lot of my, especially my tall guys and girls, or if you have lower or longer limbs, is the combat stretch. The combat stretch has been a must. And it's probably one of the stupidest, little tedious things to do that I think very few people have the discipline.
That's why it's underrated.
It is.
Because people, oh, that's silly.
Yeah, you think
it works.
Dude,
Yeah.
To give yourself the ability to, so if everybody were to get on the ground right now and just do a combat stretch just to see, like, let's see where my knee travel is. Like, how far can my knee travel over my toes before my heel lifts off the ground, or it locks up, right? So pay attention to that. And then if you could give yourself one more inch of range of motion there, what a difference that made in my squat mechanics. I remember, Sal, when you introduced me to squat shoes. I'd never used squat shoes, and you're like, you know, and when we were trying to get to the bottom, this was way back when Mind Pump first started, we were just hanging out together. And you're like, dude, you got to try these squat shoes. Like it'll help your squat. And you were right. I got it in. I was like, whoa. Like I already felt more depth. I felt.
But what does that tell you?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, what that told me was that I didn't have that ankle mobility. And the more I started to address that, man, it started to make a huge difference in my ability to get down in that squat really deep and comfortably sit there. And it's an annoying little fucking stretch that when you're doing it, you don't even think it's making a big difference until you do it enough, and then you go back to the squatting, and then you do it more, and then you go back to the squatting, and then you do it more, and you go back, and then all of a sudden you start to go, oh fuck, dude, I can.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is. Like, and now it's like that's a must. Like, there's certain moves that I know that I do on a regular basis that like those are non-negotiable. I have to do those because they improve my squat and deadlift so much that it's become a staple. And if it wasn't for that program and putting myself all the way through that, knowing damn well it's completely opposite of what I love to do. You know, I fucking hated all those movements in there. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm going like, fuck, this is challenging.
You like them now?
Yeah. No, I like what, and exactly, and it taught me something. And this is why too. Not a lot of people know this. Well, if you're an OG, you know this. But if you're a listener who's dropped in the last 6 months or a year, you may not know this. But the programs were designed to go in order. Mm-hmm. That part of the magic is everybody in this room agrees that even though, you know, an individual may benefit by going to green first or going to black first or whatever like that, but they really were designed to consecutively go through them. Like in a perfect world,
that's how we wrote them.
Yeah, you train MAPS red and you go through anabolic and you build that real good foundational strength. Although it addresses other adaptations in there, it's really a strength-based program. And then from there, nothing would be better than to challenge all that strength in all these unique movements and in a performance type program.
I would have to say that for our average listener, if the average listener who works out, Mass Performance would be the program they should be doing. You know what I'm saying? Like the average one who worked out for a long time, that's the program. If I were to look at their everything and say, okay, well, you're going to benefit most from doing this because it's so different.
Because the average gym goer gravitates to one or the other. Like you're either like a Jordan Shallow type of fan where you just fucking lift the most weight.
Power lift.
Yeah, and you love strength. And so MAPS Anabolic is, probably something you gravitate towards. Or you're somebody who, I want to sculpt and look a certain way, so you gravitate towards MAPS Aesthetic. But in reality, like performance is probably going to be the most overall beneficial for a majority of the listeners out there. And then, in my opinion, in the perfect world, you go red, green, and black, and you rotate. And we have our other programs that we have out and stuff that I think are phenomenal to incorporate and use, and I think all of them benefit you to go through. But at the bare minimum, everybody should go through red, green, and black at least one fucking time. Like that, to me, I think an awesome goal to give yourself for just 1 year of your life. It's like, I'm going to follow fucking awesome programming for what my body should do. And it takes you almost a year, right? So you literally go red, then green, then black. And then after that, do whatever the fuck you want. Bounce around the programs, manipulate them however you want.
Do it again.
Right, whatever. But do yourself a favor and take the time to go through them consecutively like the way they were designed, and then take away the knowledge that you get about your body from that.
That's the key right there.
And then apply it to all of our other programming or manipulating the programs how they are.
That's the key right there. And this month, it's half off. And this is the first time. We've never done that, right? I don't think we've ever done a huge MAPS Performance sale. If I remember,
the only time we've had a sale for MAPS Performance.
Yeah, and it's got the most programming of our foundational programs. In other words, it's the one that we really had to sit down and really figure out because it's complex. But it's super effective. It's really good, and it's half off this month. But you have to use the code GREEN50. That's GREEN and the number 50. And you just go to mindpumpmedia.com. You click on MAPS Performance, enter the code, boom. It's under $80, I think, or it's around $70, 50% off. So go check it out. Also, you can find us on Instagram. I'm Mind Pump Sal. We have Adam who's at Mind Pump Adam, and Justin who's at Mind Pump Justin.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic. 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.